In this video, I am going to give you one of the best frameworks as a catcher for you to apply to your career and understand what you should actually be focusing on so you can get on varsity quicker, you can get more college offers, and you can play baseball for a longer time. This is going to be a framework I call the GAP, and I'm really excited to share it with you because it's going to apply to literally all you guys out there who are a catcher who want to improve your skills but don't know where to start. This is one of the things that helped me in my career and helped me go from 4 different colleges and also sign a professional contract afterwards when I thought my career should have been done after transferring so many times. So I'm really excited to share this. Without further ado, I am Coach Brock, founder and CEO of Backstop Built, the complete catchers training program. And I am going to be going over this framework in depth for you to apply to your career. I'm going to be doing some drawing. Don't make fun of my handwriting because it is not good and I know that. But I call this the gap. All right. And there's 2 different sections to it. Technically, this line should be all the way through there. But the gap has 2 different parts we're going to be going over today. This top part and then this bottom part. Within this top part, there's also 2 additional parts that I have pre-written out. This first one says where you are now. Okay. This is where you are in your career. Some of you guys might be a middle school catcher. Some of you guys a lot of you are probably a high school catcher right now, who maybe you don't have any offers. Maybe you haven't played on varsity yet. Maybe you are on varsity. You've been the starting varsity catcher, but you still don't have offers or you still don't feel prepared to go play college. So wherever you are now, insert that there. Okay. Is what it is. Be realistic with where you are now. You have to be realistic. Then you have where you want to be. Okay. Where you want to be, insert whatever your dream is. So a lot of you guys want to play Division 1. A lot of you guys want to just play college baseball, maybe Division 2, maybe JUCO. All right, it's all really hard nowadays because there's so many different levels and so many guys playing that you need to have a clear goal for what you want to see or what your next overall goal is. And think more overall, like if your next goal is to get on varsity, that's great. But even if you're on varsity, you still would probably want to play college, right? So where do you want to be eventually? Now, this is very important. This is what's in between that, okay? What you do in between is the gap. So where you are to where you want to be, okay? We're just drawing that like a bridge. Now, how are you going to get there? Okay, that's the big hitter that we're going to be working on this whole gap, this in-between place, because this is actually the gap is where dreams die. So we'll write that. Dreams die. Okay. And not to get too scary of saying like your career is going to end, whatever. No, this is also where dreams can go to live. But dreams don't die here. Okay. D1, good JUCO, professional baseball, whatever. That's not where they die. They actually die here depending on what you do to make this gap closer to that. Okay. Also, keynote, the bigger your goals and dreams are for where you want to be, the more work required, the bigger this bridge is going to be to get there. All right. Makes sense, right? If you want to go D1, you're going to have to be putting in work for someone who would be going D1 or playing at a D1 because that's what you want. If you want to play professionally, you're going to have to back that with a certain amount of work and focus work, not just like doing random stuff. So you need to close this gap as closely as possible. And dreams should not stay dreams. Dreams should stay realities, or it should turn into realities. That's why I put this is where dreams go to die. They either go to die and they disappear, or they go to die and become a reality, which is a good thing. That's where everything we've closed our eyes wanted to see come true actually comes true. So either way, dreams die here. Whether it's good or bad, they need to die here, okay? So this is a gap. Where you are now, where you want to be, and then what you do in between. This is truly what defines you guys. Okay. And depending on when you're watching this video and understanding this, where you are now is only a direct result of what you've done in between in past circumstances. All right. So imagine another timeline of this going even further. So if you sat on your couch, ate Doritos, didn't really work hard, didn't do any of your catching, where you are now is not going to be very good. Okay. So that's your result. When the time comes to either play D1 professional, and if that doesn't happen, it's because of what you did in between. So Now you're probably wondering, well, what do I do in between? Well, it's not guessing. All right, start there. It's not guessing. If you don't have a plan, if you don't know what you should be doing, then you have no direction for any sort of training plan to actually tactically move forward. All right, so I recommend find a coach or find any sort of direction of someone who cares about you in your catching career, and hopefully you trust them and listen to them and try and work with them as much and as possible as you can. That's my best advice there. Do not guess on your development on things of that nature. So that is kind of the top part. We're going to leave it there for a second, and then we're going to go to the bottom part. Okay, again, this is still technically the same gap, but this is going to be a little more specific of what you should be doing. Okay, this is going to build off this. This is more overall in your career, but now so you guys can see what you should do in between. Gonna have to grab a new marker. What you should do in between is a direct correlation of this, and this is the fun stuff. Okay, so right here we have what you're worst at in your catching. All right, what you're worst at. Then we have what you're best at. All right, what you're best at might be blocking, throwing, and what you're worst at might be receiving. All right, actually, let's switch up the scenario. Let's go for what I struggled with the most. I was an amazing leader, amazing blocker, nothing got by me, very, very good at receiving. Everything in my catching was very good. Guess the one thing I was worst at? Throwing. All right, had some arm issues, especially in college, had some confidence issues, never got to where I wanted to with my throwing up until finally pro ball. But this gap, okay, depending on how bad this is, whatever you're worst at, is going to be a bigger gap compared to what you're best at, okay? So the best way to explain this is all my stuff in my personal scenario here was really, really good. And then my throwing was bad, so the gap is this wide. That's why I drew it this wide, okay? So all I'm really gonna be judged on is what I'm least best at and how that compares to what I'm actually best at, okay? Hope you follow me because this is really in depth and it's gonna make sense in a second. But no one really cared about how good my leadership was, how good my pitch calling was, how good my command of the game, how well I knew the staff, how good my blocking, receiving was, because at the end of the day, it compared so vastly to what I was worst at, which was throwing. Okay, so what you want to do, and what I wish I did, and I finally did, that's what allowed me to continue to play baseball, was close that gap as far as possible. Okay, you want your gap eventually of what you're worst at to only just be a smaller gap. And eventually you want it to close, and then obviously now all your skills are at the same tier of just eliteness, right? Just everything looks dialed, all right? So now, for the sake of the scenario, let me erase that. But what I'm trying to explain here, guys, is a high-level thought of double down, continue to work on what you're best at, but if you keep pouring into what you're best at, but not making this as quickly as you possible, your top priority, what you're worst at, in your training even better, so you can close your gap, it doesn't matter. Because imagine this scenario. Let's say you improve this while you're improving what you're best at, this gap will stay the same over and over again. And then all the coach is gonna see is what's in between, which is a massive space of skill set, okay? So if you're improving this because you want to double down what you're already good at, all right, improve your blocking, make sure it's actually that good. If you're already good at it at your level, make it good at the college level. Make it to where you could go to a college program and it'd be lights out. Same with your blocking in my scenario, or your leadership, pitch calling. But now you need to work twice as hard and double down on what's the worst part of your game, okay? Arguably put in more work than you would for those scenarios. So then this gap can start to close. Okay, you follow me? You understand what I'm trying to tell you? Then, once this gap closes and all these, you're best at everything and they're great, that is when this gap is going to start to close further. That's a good thing, because now where you are is going to start to become where you want to be, and it's going to be a reality. Okay, so that is a framework you need to understand. I would start by an in-depth self-evaluation of where your skills are. I would rank them, okay? And for most of you guys, or, a good some of you guys, you might only be really good at one thing, and that's okay. And you might have a list of things that you're really not good at, All right. So be honest. There might be some things that you're mediocre okay at. That probably goes like kind of somewhere inside the gap, in my opinion, kind of that medium. But at the end of the day, you're only going to be judged on what you're worst at. Okay. So let's use numbers for an example. Let's say your blocking is a 10 out of 10, your receiving's a 10 out of 10, all your leadership's a 10 out of 10, but your throwing is a 2 out of 10. Okay. That is a big gap, meaning there's 8 points until you would be a 10 out of 10 at throwing. So even though everything's a 10 out of 10, you actually make it a further gap by this being so good and this being so bad. In that scenario, if your throwing's a 2 out of 10, I'd rather everything else be a 5 out of 10. That way it's not such a drastic gap, okay? And trust me, I know that's going to be controversial because you'd be like, oh, I just have one thing left to improve and I'm elite. Not necessarily, because the way coaches are going to look at you, especially for the college and next level, they're going to see how bad that is and compare to how good this is, because this looks so good, it's actually going to make this look even worse if it's not good. Okay, does that make sense? It's the theory of like, so many things can be good, but it gives coaches a base for a standard they have for you. And then when they compare to the one thing that's bad, it looks even worse. Okay. Versus if you were mediocre in general, and then this was just kind of mediocre, it's like, okay, he's overall pretty mediocre. So that is why you want to close that gap as quickly as possible. How you're going to do that? Isolated focus work on that action every single day. Okay. Get analysis, get feedback, get a breakdown of what is holding you back. A lot of you guys think my throwing's holding me back. Okay, what part of your throwing? It's my transfers. Make sure, get a mechanical breakdown so you can see what that is. My blocking's holding me back. Okay, why? Get a mechanical breakdown. Start with the physical and then put yourself in an in-game scenario. Why do I miss blocks? Oh, okay. I'm probably scared of the ball. I don't recognize the ball. So you need that. Okay, get that from a coach. Again, this is what I do with players all the time. This is how I help them no matter where they're located in the country. You can get a free evaluation for yourself in the link below in the description. It'll say Backstop Built, I believe /start. Click that link. You can book a call. I'd love to go over your stuff, see how I can help, but you need to start there. Okay, you need to know the truth. I don't want well, I think this is what I am. No, you need to start there. Then after that, start with what you think. Okay, go with a ranking system. Rank every part of your game 1 out of 10, and then put them in a bunch of, okay, what's really good, what's kind of good, what's bad. And I'm willing to bet in your mind, after I've been talking about this, you actually know what's not good. All right, like when I would tell people I'm a catcher, and they're like, wow, you must be good. Are you going D1? In my mind, I knew my throwing will probably hold me back. Okay, when I was in college, at least, transferring to all those different schools. In high school, my throws were amazing. That was probably my biggest asset. And then when that tanked, it hurt my confidence. And I always was just like, I hope no one tells me or makes fun of it or looks at it, whatever. So be honest with yourself when you're doing that ranking. Be very honest of how you look, and then match that with what that coach said in his evaluations, if that makes sense. Okay, keep those separate and then compare after. All the players I work with, it's funny when they get in the program, I ask them, rank everything you're good at, all that. And they'll be like, oh, blocking, in this scenario, they'd be like 10 out of 10, my best. Receiving's just below it. And then throwing, I think I'm the worst at. Then every time I go over the video, throwing's actually pretty good. The one that was like second that they were still confident in is like by far the worst, holding them back. And like, yeah, maybe number one actually is pretty good. Or sometimes number one is the thing holding them back. So it's feel versus real. So you need to separate those. So whatever you feel versus what's actually real is what you need to actually focus on, because feelings are what keep you in the red where you are now. Okay, just what I don't feel like doing this stuff. I feel like I'm good enough. What you're worst at, I feel like I'm pretty good at everything. That's what a lot of you guys will say. So separate feelings, and then we will have dreams and then realities. Okay, again, so the gap, all this is where dreams will go to live or go to die. All right. But either way, they're going to disband. That's why I put like dreams die. So they're going to technically go into the mist in their either reality, or it's something you look back and say, I wish I did this. So this is a gap. Best way to explain it for you guys. All right. Everything you need to be thinking is, how can this gap close overall? Start with this bottom one. How can this close? And then by default, this gap is going to start to close. You're going to start seeing things happen for what you do in between and what actually happens to get there. Okay. That's probably as far as I want to go in depth with this, because I'm sure you guys have the action steps now. You understand what that is. But I would really also, kind of underrated. Really figure out where you want to be. It's amazing. I talk to so many catchers, they have no clue where they want to be. No clue. They have no clue what's going on in their career, how close they are, how close they're not. And a lot of it is delusion, which is okay, but they're not backing it with real work. And that's where here, this gap is where that happens, the nitty gritty, the grinding. And it just sucks because catching is the hardest position in all of sports. I get it. And the training structures for it are a joke. You have random drills from social media. You're trying to be a catching coach and coach yourself at the same time while being a catcher. Like, makes no sense. I did that one, so I'm not throwing flack at you. Number two is group work at structured practices, maybe a couple times a week with the guys you're competing against, with the low-level catching coach, just working on stuff that's going to help the team. Number three is an in-person session with the catching coach only one time a week. What are you getting the other 6 days a week? Nothing. And you're paying pretty top dollar just for that 1 hour of his time. So those options make no sense. If you want something real, you want something daily, you want real evaluation, a real plan, and a community of catchers that are exactly where you are, then that's exactly what we do here at Backstop Built. Again, look at that description below where that link is where you can apply to work with me, or you can just see what we do. But if you want, we can cut through the tape and you could book a call with me and I can go over where you are in your career if you're a high school catcher and how I can help get you college offers as a catcher, get you to the next level with stuff like this. All right, so please go ahead, look at that. And again, please like this video and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss another in-depth free training so I can hopefully help you with where you're at right now. Again, try and achieve your dream of playing college baseball because I'm telling you, it's so worth it. Some of the best times in my life. But I hope you're able to understand the gap and everything it entails. God bless. Stay the course.